Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to our cozy little corner of the internet. I'm Pen and today I'll be starting the fic of Double Dare by ToadlilyAUs. This is a long one with 210 chapters and 1,553,000 words. Just so you know, for this whole fic, there are a few trigger warnings: implied and reference suicide, angst, implied and reference child abuse, experimentation, NG Todoroki facing consequences, which implies abuse, honestly, drugs, panic attacks, abuse, as I said before, character death, and implied / reference non-con. Now, I hope you just take care of yourself with that. Be careful if you want to take time. Be careful, don't listen to the story. But yeah, this is going to be part 1, chapter 1. Yes, I'm taking notes out of Put Your Hands Up Podfic, otherwise known as Cat. I'm taking a note out of her book, and I'm separating the chapters because, gosh, it's too long. And I am recording this after I recorded the main bit. Anyway, here is the summary. After what was arguably the worst day of Izuku Midoriya's life, a chance meeting with a mysterious vigilante changes everything. After being bullied and baited by a childhood friend, attacked by a villain, and having his dreams crushed by his idol, Izuku finally meets someone who is not only willing to be his friend, but who believes in his ability to be a hero, even without a quirk. Dare, John Doe, the equivalent of John Doe, has an ever-shifting appearance and an even shiftier past. Being a vigilante on the run from his former captors makes it hard to form relationships, but they are incapable of ignoring a call for help from people in need. So they take a chance with a bullied child with a big brain and a bigger heart. What started as a mission to train Midoriya for the UI entrance exams leads to unexpected friendships and the explosion of several conspiracies, and more than their fair share of action and violence, all the while learning that truly saving someone means far more than bringing villains down. Now, let me just go back down to the comments. Okay. Here we go. This author actually has a real life story published. It is called Marching Backwards by their real name. April, I'm assuming it's their real name, but it's April Verduzco Voss. I don't know how to pronounce names, so I apologize for that. But I will leave the link to the Amazon link in the description below in case you want to look at it. Yeah. Hope you guys enjoy. Oh, and just one more note. The author says at the start of this story that Dare uses he, him, and they, them pronouns, so they'll be changing them intermittently. So yeah, they'll be changed interchangeably. So yeah. Also, I do sometimes say Dare instead of Dare in this fic a lot because even I do it in my head still. Anyway, hope you guys enjoy. See you guys in the fic. If what Dare heard coming from the upper story window of Aldera Middle was any indication of a typical school atmosphere, they were quite glad they had never been allowed to attend. Classes had just been let out for the day about 10 or so minutes ago, so Dare decided to use the crowd of children, leaving as a convenient cover on the way to their daily patrol, but they were distracted by the sound of small explosions emanating from a classroom overhead. No one else seemed to look twice in the direction of the sound, so it must have been a regular occurrence, but something about it gave them pause. Dare elected to loiter around, just in case their services would be needed after all. The popping sound of further small explosions sounded out in tandem with the smallest boys' whimpering cries, followed by the unceremonious tossing of a scorched notebook out the window. At first, Dare was unsure if the owner of the notebook was the one who had tossed it or not. Could just be some brat rebelling against the concept of homework or something like that. But the words he heard next dispelled that notion for him. That's just so sad. I thought you would at least have some fight in you, the first boy said dismissively. He finally gets it. He'll never be a hero. The second said with a sneer. Better to find out now instead of later, I guess, the first boy replied. You know, if you want to actually be a hero, so badly, there might just be another way. The third boy, the one Dara had instinctively pegged as the ringleader, said with an air of false hope. Just hope you'll be born with a quirk in your next life, and take a swan dive off the roof of the building. Dara recoiled at the cruel indifference in the boy's tone, as he suggested the unthinkable. He said the words as if they were an obvious solution to an overdue problem, and in that moment Dara's heart broke for the green-haired boy in the window. It took every ounce of his self-control not to leap through the window and disperse his usual justice on the vicious brats. But, despite the hot bite of anger in his stomach, they reminded themselves that these were just middle schoolers and not actual villains. That didn't mean Dare was completely powerless, though. In this moment, two things were known to him about the boy on how to help the boy with the Viridian curls. The first was that he was in serious need of a friendly face to help combat the other's cruelty. The second was that the real notebook was almost certainly theirs, and must be some form of importance if its destruction left him so upset that he would stand there and look gutted by the loss of it. So, instead of charging into a public building in the middle of the day to fight 3 middle schoolers, like he so desperately wanted to do, Dare scaled back down the side of the building and started gathering the scattered pages. Midoriya Izuku thought he was used to Kachan's bullying at this point. After years of snide comments and outright abuse by his former childhood friend, he thought he heard it all and felt the worst of what him and his cronies could offer. He should know better by now to never underestimate Kachan. He could always go above and beyond. He was glad that none of the teachers had stuck around to hear their latest fight. They never had done anything to stop his bullies in the past. In fact, it sometimes felt like they had encouraged the kids with more promising quirks to practice their powers on him. But openly baiting a student, even a useless quirkless one like him, surely that was crossing the line, wasn't it? The last thing he wanted to do was get Kachan in trouble and get in the way of his dreams of becoming a hero. Midoriya bent over to gather some of his pages from the koi pond in front of the school, muttering under his breath to himself, "What if I actually jumped? What would he do then?" He shook the bulk of the water gently from the page he'd grabbed, hoping against all reason the ink had not bled too badly for him to transcribe his notes into a new notebook when he got home. My dreams have turned into fish food. Suddenly, a shadow eclipsed the sun over the boy's shoulder. He turned hesitantly to see which bully had snuck around to beat him up or push him to the pond this time, and instead he saw someone he'd never seen before in his life. His eyes widened in fear as he took in the form in front of him. They were holding his notebook in one hand and extended the other in Midoriya's direction. And while they looked decidedly human and did not look much older than he was, there was two things you could tell by looking at two things you can tell from your first look at them. Their skin was a patchwork of different colours and textures. Their hair was a similar amalgamation, like that of a calico cat, and each eye was a different in tone, shape, and size. No one part of their face or body seemed to match the rest of them, and one fanged tooth hung lower than the rest over the top of their smiling lips. The clothes they wore were plain, dark, and dirty, with several patches that were sewn in with little to no skill. In short, Everything about this person set off the uneasy danger bells in Midoriya's brain. They looked eerily too similar to Frankenstein's monster from that ancient movie he watched with his mother for Halloween last year. When Midoriya simply stared at them, stunned for an uncomfortably long amount of time, without accepting the other child's hand, they slowly retracted the offering collection of fingers and cleared their throat to speak. But their voice did not help the uncanny valley effect, currently sending Midoriya's heart rate through the roof. It was a true neutral of all speech he had ever heard. It did not reveal any age, gender, or dialect. It could believably belong to anyone you'd heard speak for the first time, without much question, and as a result, felt like it could never really belong to anyone. Hey, this is yours, right? They said, gesturing towards the still dripping and scorched notebook in their hands. Their voice sounded fake, artificial, like a trap. Midoriya could hold in his fear no more. His base fight or flight instincts took over, and they chose the latter. With a startled whimper, they fled from the scene as quick as their nervous legs could carry him. They were sad to abandon Notebook 13, but between Katsuki's explosions and the koi pond, he was going to be transcribing everything again anyway, so starting from scratch instead wasn't that much extra effort, and it was preferable to whatever form of torture that zombie had planned for him. He ran at the full capacity of his lungs before realizing he wasn't being followed. He finally slowed down to catch his breath in the tunnel underneath the bridge, only to come face to face with a third person who wished him dead. A sludge monster emerged from the sewer grate, and Midoriya had no more willpower left in him to fight and get away fast enough. "You'll make a great skin suit for me to hide in, kid," the sludge villain said as they quickly overpowered the already tired boy. Midoriya tried to scream, tried to struggle against the vile tendrils currently slithering down his throat, but all that came out were feeble whimpers. "Don't worry, I'm just taking over your body. It'll be better for both of us if you don't fight. It'll only hurt for a minute. You'll feel better soon." The sludge villain attempted to coax him in with a gravelly voice. Midoriya thought back on all that has happened to him in his life, and the little doses of misery and discrimination that had peppered his days ever since he was 4 years old and found out he was quirkless. About his dreams of being a hero, that even his mother didn't think he was capable of the childhood friend who made it abundantly clear that he wouldn't be missed, and all the other signs of the universe seemed to be sending him even in the past day. Maybe Katron was right. Maybe he would have better luck in his next life. He wouldn't even have to find a building to try. All he would have to do is stop fighting. Just as Midoriya was beginning to come to terms with the opportunity before him, he saw something even more shocking than either of the monsters that had attacked him in the last hour. "Have no fear, you are safe, now that I am here. All Might?" Midoriya could hardly contain himself as the number one hero, Midoriya's idol, All Freaking Might, jumped into action with the call of his catchphrase, calling out one of his signature moves with gusto as he punched. "Texas Smash!" The force of the blowback, combined with the excitement and lack of oxygen, all came together at once. and against his better wishes, Midoriya lost consciousness just as the villain was being scooped up into a plastic bottle. Dare should have known better than to sneak up behind the kid like that. He was already in a fragile state, and while most people were afraid of him even with the best conditions, he hadn't meant to scare them. He hadn't even really meant to sneak. But several years of self-training is hard to just turn off at a moment's notice. They couldn't find it in themselves to be upset at the boy's reaction. There was a time that seeing the look of terror and unease on people's faces when they saw him was deeply troubling to him. The frustration and loneliness weighed heavily in his heart, but with each attempt at a pleasant introduction. But as time went on, and as their body morphed further and further with each injury or failed experiment, those emotions were replaced by understanding. He looked in their reflection in the pond to see just how badly their current face had gotten. Admittedly, it had been a while since his last reset, and while most of his features had been damaged or reformed in the past month or so of work, none of it happened in the same fight. When he saw the discordant features reflected back at him in the water, they let out a long suffering sigh. Yeah, I guess I would have run too if I were you, kid. He hated doing resets. The pain was short-lived, but not non-existent, so the mental energy it took to strike himself into it was usually more trouble than it was worth. But last night's patrol had tipped the scales on "that guy's kind of funny looking" to full-on conspicuous. So, if he didn't reset soon, people were liable to start taking note of them. Plus, if he managed to track down the boy with green curls to return his notebook, he would need a vessel that was a bit more approachable to gain their trust. Dare searched the environment for a suitable corner where he could do the deed in one swing. They needed the change to be simultaneous across their whole face, and if they wanted to do that, if they wanted it to match when it regenerated. Plus, he hated when he had to psych himself into doing it twice when he missed something. He tested out the dimensions on a possible contender, and when it seemed to fit nicely, he shook out his hands and began his usual prep talk. Okay, Dare, you can do this. Your pain is temporary, theirs isn't. You can't save people if they're running from you, and if you get caught, then you won't be able to help anyone from inside the lab or jail cell. Who will feed your cat? No one. The mission comes first. You can do this. You're not even real. The pain is just an illusion. Nothing matters. Just do it. Just do it. With a final desperate shout, he rammed his face as hard as he could into the unforgiving bricks. He barely had time to react to the blood splatter before his quirk took over, shuffling the broken bones and regenerating the bruises and torn flesh to create the newest iteration of their face. Dare squeezed down on his thumb to contain the rising bile, but no matter how much it happened, the visceral wrong feeling in his bones shifting and morphing under your skin never got any easier to stomach, and while the skin regenerating was simple enough for their quirk to fix in mere seconds, the cartilage and bones often took a minute or two to settle. God, I hate reset days, he griped himself as he made his way queasily to look back in the pond to assess his new look. It's not bad. Decidedly more masculine than the last one, but I can work with that. Maybe this draw will be more authoritative and reassuring. The nose leaves a bit to be desired, but I've had worse. Yeah, this'll do. He thought to himself before carefully flipping through the notebook the boy had lost. Normally, they would try to avoid such invasions of privacy, but this time it was it was essential to track down the kid before they had any chance to follow through with the tiny villain's advice. Normally, kids would write at least a name somewhere at the front or back of these things. If Dare was lucky, he might even find an address or some sort of contact info. There was no such extra info, but what was there was incredibly enlightening. While parts were difficult or impossible to read due to the damage and missing bits, what was readable was page after page of incredibly well done hero analysis, completed with detailed sketches of heroes and their gear. The more they read, the more confused they become. He was pretty sure the bullies from earlier had called him Quirkless, but surely skill and intelligence of this level would be impossible for someone so young without one, wasn't it? What was once a simple wellness check had upgraded in his mind to a full investigation. Insight like this would go a long way in his field, and given that this notebook was labelled Hero Analysis for the Future number 13, there must be at least 12 more books filled with knowledge he could read. Hopefully, the boy with green curls would be gracious enough to let him take a look. At a loss for a better plan, Dare set off on a light jog in the direction the boy had run. When he got to the city, he could take the rooftops for a bird's eye view. Worst case scenario, they could always camp out by the school tomorrow and hope that the boy would show up in one piece. Midoriya stood in stunned silence, abandoned on the top of a random high-rise, feeling hollow and heavy all at once. He finally met his hero. All Might saved his life, and he made that life seem pointless in a mere 5 minutes later. It took the last vestiges of his courage to grab onto the towering figure as he leapt up into the sky. It was reckless and stupid, and All Might had told him as much, but he couldn't bear to see him leave before he had a chance to ask him one question he had always wanted to ask him. And then there was the shock of seeing the inflatable hero deflate before his very eyes in a puff of steam and tell him that this nearly fatal accident all these years ago that no one knew about. How was that even possible? He swore to never tell anyone, and he meant it. Even now, he never dreamed of betraying the symbol of peace by telling his secrets. But then he got up to leave again, and Midoriya once again panicked. All Might had been vulnerable with him, so he laid out the last shred of hope he had. Sometimes I feel like I'm a failure, but there's no hope for me. But even so, I'm not going to give up, ever. He braced himself to ask the question, is it possible to become a hero even if I don't have a quirk? I'm just a normal kid without any powers. Could I ever hope to be someone like you? There it was. No one else had ever believed in him, but if All Might said he could do it, then it would be enough. He had enough reason to keep fighting. But All Might didn't say that. He told him in no uncertain terms that he could never be a hero, not without a quirk. It's not bad to have dreams, young man. Just make sure your dreams are attainable, realistic, understand? And with that, he left. He left him standing alone on the top of a tall building with nothing but his thoughts and his broken heart. He slowly slumped against the wall by the vent shaft, hugging his knees tightly to his chest, willing his consciousness to eject from his body, to leave behind a useless, quirkless body and find a better one with a quirk, any quirk, even a weak or passive one. He could find a way to make it useful. He could find a way to make it a hero's quirk. Midoriya was so lost in his own despair that he did not hear the blast in the distance. So used to the sound of resonant booms after a lifetime of knowing Kachan that it had become white noise to him, so removed from the world around him that he hadn't even seen the boy approaching him until he was running past in front of him. Okay, I just realized this would probably be a good spot to leave the first chapter, since these are very long chapters, and I could probably fit 2 eps into one chapter. 2 eps into one chapter. Yep. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to take care of yourself. Once again, if you do like this fic, go to the description below, read the original story, and I should be out with the second part soon. I'll maybe do it tonight. It's already 10:40, so I might not, but who knows. Anyway, I hope you had a good time. Make sure to drink some water after this, because that's the only reason why I stopped at first, to have a sip of water. It's not water, it's Powerade, but whatever. I had a sip of my Gatorade, and I was like, hey, I should probably stop here. It's bloody 20 to 11, so I should stop, realistically. But am I going to? No, probably not. Anyway, I hope you had a good night. A good day, good night. However it was, I hope you enjoyed the day. And if it was a shit day, I hope I made the day better. Anyway, I will be coming back with part 2, hopefully soon. I'm not sure when I'm going to publish this, but it will be soon. But yeah. Hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you guys next time. See ya!